back to our Final Fantasy VII playthrough. Today is January 21st, 2019. I should probably take a minute to clarify what I've been doing here because this is the first video that you're coming to where we are not doing optional content. We are instead moving directly forward and doing very real content, moving forward with the plot, pushing forward with the story, and not doing side quest content. So if you skipped my last two videos for whatever reason, welcome back. I'm glad to have you back on our playthrough of again, Final Fantasy VII right now. You probably knew that from our previous plays and things. But anyway, welcome back. So I want to give myself a little disclaimer here. It looks like I was having a little bit of internet problems while I was recording this. Now, I didn't get a chance to troubleshoot that on the spot, but that will stop after a few minutes into the video. So if it looks a little rocky at the beginning here, I'm sorry, but I promise it does fix itself a little bit later on, so just kind of bear with me for a minute. If you are just now joining us and coming back to our playthrough, coming back to this part, then I'll go ahead and inform you just briefly as to what went on in the past two parts. It was all optional side quest content. The first thing we did was do another Fort Condor minigame, which if you remember anything I ever said about Fort Condor, then you'll know that I think Fort Condor is kind of a waste of time. I kind of think it's a ripoff of something similar from Final Fantasy VI that, to be honest with you, I'm just really not thrilled about the changes that they've made for Final Fantasy VII in that particular regard. But in any case, we are moving forward today with the plot having done a couple side quests. We did the entirety of the Wutai area side quest, which, if you've played Final Fantasy before, then you are familiar with the Wutai side quest as a tremendous pain in the butt. It'll also spring itself on you if you're not really prepared. So again, the best thing to do before you do the Wutai side quest is to make sure that all of your characters are sufficiently leveled, and to make sure that your materia is sufficiently leveled as well, even though we don't really have our materia until the second half, or the latter half rather, of the Wutai area subquest. The beginning of it, you have no materia whatsoever. The second half, you have materia, but you have essentially 5 boss fights in the pagoda that, if you're not prepared for, will mess you up, to put it blatantly. So what I'm doing right now is just moving around materia and getting all of my characters back into their strongest state. I'm going to skip forward a little bit because you don't need to see all of the materia, but you should just know that a lot of my materia is leveled up pretty well. I do have a couple things mastered. I have a couple things that a lot of players wouldn't have at this point in the game. I'm going to do my best to stay away from using those effects ad litem throughout the rest of the playthrough, because I want my playthrough to be reflective of like the average player's playthrough, and not like me, who has spent the last couple days or so just grinding out levels in the Junior area. Anyway, I'm going to skip this part of the video a little bit so that we can jump forward with the action and move forward with the plot. So welcome back. I'm sorry for that little hiccup there, but you didn't need to see me moving around too much materia. Something I didn't mention earlier is that I did go ahead and fill out the enemy skill materia a little bit more off camera, or at the very least in the optional part. I did go back and make sure I had beta equipped with both of the enemy skill materias. So no problems whatsoever there. No matter which materia goes where, we should have beta for that matter. Something I thought was pretty interesting that I didn't mention in the the side quest walkthrough for the past couple parts was that I did switch out Cloud's weapon from the Hard Edge to the Mirasami. The reason I did that was because Mirasami has a significantly higher attack stat, but it has a lot fewer materia slots. I tend to play heavily with my materia to make sure that I use my materia all the time, and I make sure that my materia is definitely not subpar. It's definitely good to go. But in a situation like with the Wutai subquest, where we don't have a lot of materia, where we don't have a lot of access to a lot of different abilities, where we just have our physical attacks and we just have our specific like items that we can use, or like fire skeins or bolt skeins. I'm not sure if they're called skeins in this game or not. But anyway, that's where it pays to have fewer slots and more and more straight up brute force or just straight power with all of your characters. That's why I switched out his weapon, and he's actually still got it. The Mirazami is that it looks kind of like Sephiroth's sword, to be honest. It's a kind of a katana sword, but it's a far cry from the Buster sword that we started the game with, and looks nothing like the Hard Edge, which is, in all honesty, a better weapon to be using from this point until we get to our next weapon a little bit later on. So after wandering around the mountains of Wutai for a little bit, we will eventually come up onto the Tiny Bronco. Of course, the Tiny Bronco is just our little floating boat airplane thing. We're going to take that over here towards the Gold Saucer and move forward with the plot. Now, important that we don't go to the Gold Saucer too quickly, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So remember that the way to get to the Gold Saucer isn't actually to walk up to it. It's actually to go in through the Corel railcar entrance. So there's nothing really for you to mess with in the weapon shops or in any of the item shops or anything around Corel. I don't think anything has changed since the last time we were here, and if something has changed, it's fairly insignificant. So there's no reason whatsoever to have to spend any time around the Corel weapon shop or the item shop buying new items and things. And of course, this is the entrance to the Gold Saucer, just so you know. The rail car over here in the Corel mining city here, not walking up to it in the middle of the desert. And now you have the option to actually choose what kind of pass that you would like to have when you enter into the Gold Saucer. Before, we didn't have very much gil at our disposal, so we could really only afford the day pass. But now that we've been grinding for a long time, we should have plenty of gil that we can use to actually buy the lifetime pass. And then we can get in and out of the Golden Saucer as much as we would like. But of course, it only makes sense to go to the Gold Saucer when you've actually done the events that will trigger all of the cutscenes that are about to happen here soon. So we did skip a step here, and if you are watching what I'm doing and following what I'm doing verbatim, I'm sorry I led you down a little bit of a wrong path here. We need to go speak to a certain NPC who's really not far from here in order to trigger some cutscenes that are going to happen in the Golden Saucer area. So what we're doing now is just heading off back onto the world map, back through Corel, and onto a piece of land that just has a house. Now that house is home to a weapon maker who will be very important to us later on in the game. Not very important to us right now anyway. So coincidentally, it just so happens that the tiny Bronco is parked right next to the house. So we have to go in and we'll get a little cutscene here involving the Keystone and a character who we've met previously. We'll see if you remember who that is. Of course, once you know that Dio is the one who has the Keystone, then it is time to go to the Gold Saucer. So I'm sorry that I did skip a step in the middle there. In your playthrough, after you do the Wutai thing, you should probably go straight to the weapons guy over by the Golden Saucer area, over by the Gold Saucer area. I've always felt like I know that's a Mog or a Moogle at the very top of the screen, but I've always felt like that looks like Kirby from the original, like those old Nintendo games. Maybe I'm crazy, but I really think that's Kirby. If it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's Kirby. So the best thing to do at this point is to go over into the battle square, where we are going to go find Dio in his personal museum here. So this is Dio's showroom. It's basically a museum of different things from the game. There's some Easter eggs around this room. If you're interested in Googling them, go ahead and do so. So Dio has our keystone, which is something that we need, but it doesn't look like he's willing to just give it up without, without a fight. You get it? I'm just kidding. Dio is actually going to make us fight, but we're not going to fight him for the keystone. We are actually going to go into his Colosseum and fight a series of battles. Now, let me work through the battle arena with you here. The battle arena is a series of up to 8 battles. Each battle does get progressively harder, and the first one should be the easiest, obviously, because you have to prepare. What we're going to do is first cast Big Guard, that will be protect ourselves from this and future enemies. For the most part, Big Guard will wear off after a few minutes, but it's important to get that up as soon as we can, or as early as we can, because the enemies are easier at this point in the game. The next thing we're going to do is stick to our enemy skills. We are going to bring these guys down as quickly as we possibly can. So an interesting thing will happen in between each match. You will get hit with some kind of handicap. The handicap that we just got was poison, which means we will start this battle off with poison status. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that status effect so we can move on unhinged. Something you might not see is that Cloud has the gem ring attached to his accessory, so any status ailments won't affect him. Stone Stare will bring you down in one move if you are not equipped accordingly. And the best thing that you can do is equip Cloud with a ribbon or something that will prevent all status effects no matter what they are. At this point in the game, I don't have a ribbon, so I'm just going to use the antidote, the gem ring, and that should do everything I need to do for our experience now with the battle arena for the time being. Another good thing to have is the counter materia, which you just saw in action. Cloud took physical damage and then immediately counterattacked. So now we have another handicap coming our way, and this time it's going to break our accessory. This is one of my least favorite handicaps that we can have in the game. It kind of drives me up a wall because usually the accessory is something that takes a long time to get and something you rely on a lot, especially as the battles get harder. But without it, we can still move out ahead of the game. We can still use elixirs, antidotes, and items to get rid of status effects instead of whatever the accessory did for us. This is the best one for us in this case. We're going down 5 levels. The reason this is the best one for us is because my characters are grossly over-leveled, so having them go down 5 levels is not going to put a significant handicap on our gameplay right now. Fantastic. So now we are moving on to our fifth battle here rather. Looks like our speed just got cut in half. Alright, another one of those enemies that will definitely inflict status ailments on you if you are not prepared. Death Sentence is a pain in the butt. It puts a timer on you for 60 seconds. You have 60 seconds then to completely eradicate these enemies, otherwise it's game over. Now I should note that at this point in the game, the Colosseum, even if you do lose, you will still walk away with the keystone. You will still effectively win this part of the game, no matter what you do. The question is what you walk away with. So if you lose, you'll just get the keystone, but if you win, you'll get the keystone and some other goodies that are really good to have for the rest of the game. So the power down we had this time was a half HP, which not a problem, especially if the HP plus materia on. Then that's really not going to affect you as much as it would if you were at a much lower level, or if you had a lower HP level too. Something you might consider doing is using Aqualung instead of Beta. I think that Aqualung actually takes significantly less MP than Beta does, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. Alright, and now we are moving into the next battle here against some evil cricket guys with half HP and half MP. And at last we are moving on to our last phase of the battle here, starting out with Toad status, or Imp status. This is a fairly easy status for us to beat. We just have to move down into the item command and use a Maiden's Kiss. Doing so will return Cloud to his normal state. Now the biggest problem we're going to have throughout this battle is keeping our HP up, because or keeping HP and your MP up, because they've both been cut in half twice now. So we're at 1/4 of our total capacity for MP and HP. So it looks like I used an elixir the first time here just to make sure my HP and MP were as maxed out as they can be. Using an elixir is not something I shudder with in the Colosseum, because there's a way that we can get as many elixirs as we need later on in the game, and I'll show you that when we get there. And just like before, he will fall off the chain from time to time. That's great, because it just takes up one of his turns, because he now has to take a turn to climb up back onto his chain to do any damage to you. You might be wondering why I'm not using my limit breaks right now. Good question. To be honest with you, I think that I assumed that I didn't realize this was the last battle. I would have used the limit breaks much sooner, but I think refraining from it will show you just an alternative way to take down the enemy. Even if you don't have limit breaks, or if you're not lucky enough to get the limit breaks that I have at this exact point. So again, the name of this playthrough is Spam Beta. Spam Beta at every possible opportunity. I should also mention that if you go through the Colosseum enough times, eventually you'll move on to a much more difficult version of the same thing. We're not there yet, so this is actually a pretty straightforward battle. Looks like he's having some trouble climbing up the chain there, huh? Oh, I see why. My MP is all the way down to 98, so I'm trying not to use my last 50 MP for beta, because I still think there's another battle after this one. There's no battle after this one. It's just what I was thinking while I was playing. This is the end of it. There he goes, and that will leave us victorious in the Colosseum. Now, what you didn't see is that while I was recording this, it did take me about 2 or 3 different tries before I was able to beat the Coliseum. So don't be surprised if it does take you quite a few tries to make it through the Coliseum or through the battle arena this time around. You see how high my levels are at this point, and it still took me quite a few tries to make it through the Coliseum. So if you do struggle with it, it's totally normal. But looks like we got a Protect Vest there, and the Keystone, which is and the Chocolate Feather, which are some great items there that we can use throughout the rest of the game. Again, if you do lose in the Coliseum, though, you don't get a game over. The game doesn't stop. You don't have to retry over and over again. But if you do win, you do get those nice spoils. And now that we have received the Keystone, we are able to gain access into the Ancient Temple. So all we have to do is leave the gold saucer, but it appears as if the tram is out of order. The rail car is out of order. Oh no, whatever will we do? So luckily, even though the rail car is down, or the trolley is down, the tram is down, we are still able to stay at the Ghost Inn tonight, because Ketshi seems to be the hookup. For the most part, I'm going to stay pretty quiet for the next couple scenes or so and just kind of let you enjoy what's going on screen. The decisions that you make here don't actually impact the rest of the game or the plot or the development of your characters. So I encourage you to pick the options that you think are the most entertaining, that you think are the most fun. And really the only thing we have to do is push through the next couple of scenes in the linear way that they will play out. Additionally, this is a great time for you to actually go about enjoying the Gold Saucer for free. So if you haven't had a chance to go play any of the mini games, to go sightsee a little bit or explore what the Gold Saucer has to offer, this is a great chance for you to do so. So, right after the gondola ride, we come across Ket Shi, who seems to have the Keystone. What's he doing with that? Is he stealing it? Is he running away with it? He's being pretty shady. Let's chase him down and see where he goes. And here you can see Ket Shi's obvious disguise actually fooling me. Oh my gosh. If you could see me right now, guys, I'm literally I got my forehead on the table here. I can't believe how embarrassing this is. That just I promise I'm a smart guy, guys. I'm gonna flush out the whole space before I finally realize where Ket Shi is. No, I'm gonna leave. Oh God, no, Cloud, don't, no. Well, this is embarrassing. I just want to shout through my screen right now. Come on, Cloud. Oh, man. I can't decide where to go. No, no. Oh gosh. Ooh, maybe. It looks like the game has finally moved on without me. Oh man. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry I wasted your time watching me run around like an idiot. And finally, guys, we found where we're supposed to go. And just so you know, it doesn't matter what you do up to this point, no matter what decisions you make or what happens on your date here with either Tifa or Eris, you will always lose the keystone here to Ketchi every single time. So there's nothing you can do to avoid that. It's just kind of a part of the game. So, after wandering the world map just a little bit, you will come across the Temple of the Ancients, which shouldn't be too hard to find. It's basically a ziggurat that's just kind of protruding out of the jungle. So, when you find the ziggurat, you found the Temple of the Ancients. Now, we are going to wrap up our part as soon as we reach the temple here. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this episode. Hopefully next time we get back into the live playthrough feel as opposed to the narration feel. To be honest with you, I feel like I'm living this twice when I watch the video and re-record and edit all this out. So we are moving over into the Temple of the Ancients in our next part. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I will see you next time. Peace.